But Will Flanders from Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty joins me. And Will, I guess how are we not getting the accurate information on school spending? Why is it like a scandal that no media is reporting on, that DPI is not providing us accurate information on how much money we are spending per kid in Wisconsin schools? I want to start there because we're just coming off an education topic. So this was kind of news to me. I guess I assumed the data was accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to go back a little bit, one of the big arguments in this new funding lawsuit from a number of the districts that we're no longer spending enough on kids, the funding levels are inadequate. And so one thing we did is, I went on a DPI's website a few weeks ago, pulled the data back to 2000 on spending, did inflation adjustment to it, and showed that we're actually spending more than we were in the year 2000. So, that sort of undermines their case, right? Spending is actually up over 2000 adjusted for inflation. They like to use 2008, 2009 because that's right before Act 10 was implemented, and that's the high mark of spending in the history of the state entirely. I went back to do some more work, and what I noticed is that since I pulled that data, DPI has taken down all of the data before 2008 in terms of what spending levels were. So if someone's trying to access this for the case, if there are other folks that are interested in this data, it's no longer available on DPI's website, and this is a change that's happened since March. It's very difficult to find spending data back that far. You might be able to look in physical blue books, but it doesn't always have all the information. So certainly a curious thing that at this point, after having that data up for many years, they decided to take it down in light of this lawsuit that's trying to make the case that spending isn't high enough.
Oh, wow. So this seems like DPI's thumb on the scale of this lawsuit, period. This seems like they are trying to have an impact. So, again, but you have it. You have the data. So it can be presented, but this sounds like DPI is trying to make it hard or rather easier for this claim to be successful in court.
It certainly seems that way, and we put in an open records request to see what discussions happened around the removal of this data. But, you look at, the hearing yesterday about, the closed door changing of test scores. You look at the fact that they've, again, I think you were just talking about, just sort of altered all these standards and things of that nature. So everything is about hiding things from the public, closing people's eyes, and making it look as though things are different than they are. And this seems to just be the latest example. We'll see what the results of this open record request are. It might take them 6 months. We've seen the things we've done is what IRG has done. It takes forever for them to reply at this point. But it certainly doesn't look good on the surface when they're taking away the data that sort of disproves the whole point of the entire lawsuit.
Right. You take away the data that disproves the lawsuit. Make it so you can't access it any longer, which is not even in compliance with the law. You're supposed to be providing transparent information on school spending. So this is about affecting the outcome of a case, and shame on them. But they're notorious for this. We don't know, for instance, unless Will Flanders does the deep dive on this, or, back when Bill Osmulski was doing this as well. Love to Bill, wish he were still doing research on education, is on what is a school that is succeeding versus a school that is failing. We have no failing schools in Wisconsin, and yet we have kids who can't read or do math at grade level, 5% in Milwaukee. And yet if you go, it meets expectations, exceeds expectations. Does any school just fail expectations? Hardly any, if any. And how are they making the criteria? They're using weights, they're using statistical manipulation. So unless it's up, unless you do the dive, we're not getting accurate information.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, I've already had folks reach out to me and say, can we cite your stuff now because we can no longer cite DPI stuff in the context of this case. So they really have, tried to hamstring people. And, of course, it's going to let them undermine it because they're going to be citing something from a conservative think tank rather than from the horse's mouth. But
exactly.
We'll see what we uncover there. So we'll see what the results show, but it certainly looks improper.
That's the point, to say, well, that's just Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. They're conservative. Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. So that's just their data. That's Will Flanders' analysis. So it is huge. And actually, as I'm thinking this through, there's the potential that this goes even deeper than that. I mean, when you're doing open records information on why the data was removed, first, get the communication. What was the conversation on how you take that data down? Second, I would be also asking for communication with anyone about this particular lawsuit, because let's tell people what this lawsuit is. This is a lawsuit that says the reason why the scores suck is because we're not spending enough money on education. And then they're pointing to that 1 year you talked about, 2008 and 2009, to make the claim. And then their remedy for their claim is unlimited resources for Wisconsin K-12, which, as Alvin just explained a few minutes ago, will just be poured into more woke critical theory.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They leave the data up that is sort of the high watermark for the highest we've ever spent, which is that, the end of the Doyle administration there was a ton of federal money coming in. As anyone who was in Wisconsin for more than a decade knows, that then we had Act 10, massive savings to school districts after that, but there was a little bit of a dip in funding for a few years. We're almost back to those highest levels it is. But
we had the recession. The housing crash happened.
Yeah.
That's what happened. The housing crash happened, and as the housing crash went, so went the Wisconsin budget. We had difficulties. We were running a $3 billion structural deficit back then. So this is manipulating people's short attention span as well. This is really, this is corrupt. I mean, I don't see any other way to look at this other than corrupt.
It certainly looks really bad on the surface, and again, the timing. We put this report out. We do our sort of. We had a online webinar with a lot of people attending last week, and then next week this data is mysteriously gone from the website. So certainly, like we've seen a lot of other instances of them doing things behind closed doors and trying to hide information, we certainly shouldn't be giving them the benefit of the doubt. I agree.
Sure. I agree. Unfortunately, I'm looking at my clock, and we're kind of running out of time, so we're going to have to bring you on to talk about what has changed in regard to taxes and regulation in Wisconsin another day. This was just a pretty big story. Again, you have got state government, I think, probably working hand in glove with the people who are bringing the lawsuits against state government as well. And that's another thing that could potentially be revealed with an open records request. Will Flanders, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.